Hey everybody, this is Attorney Kenneth Stevens from the law firm Stevens PLLC, and this is another edition of Breaking Down AIA Agreements. I'm back again on the 201-2017, and we're going to be looking at clauses 10, 11, and 12. Clause 10 pertains to safety, clause 11 pertains to insurance and bonds, and clause 12 pertains to uncovering and correcting the work. So jumping right into clause 10, it's all about safety. Basically, in a nutshell, clause 10 covers the gambit of what happens in the event of an emergency. It talks about designating a safety rep. It talks about in the event of an injury or an emergency, what needs to happen, who needs to be notified, and how quickly they need to be notified. I do see this date modified a lot. Sometimes it's as short as 7 days. Sometimes it's immediately, and sometimes there's a time frame of like the 21 days that's affiliated with the regular claim time. Typically though, you're going to see that in the event of an emergency, like if somebody actually gets injured, it's going to say immediately or promptly or some kind of language like that. There's also language in there regarding hazardous materials. If there's hazardous materials at a work site, there's a certain procedure normally that talks about how it's going to be handled, and that's normally in this section of the agreement. So normally what you see is the contractor has a certain amount of days to notify the owner, and then the owner bears the responsibility of getting that whole thing taken care of and cleaned up, unless of course the contractor brought the hazardous materials to the site. There's also usually some language in there that says that the contractor has the ability to object to who the owner brings out to remediate the hazardous condition, and that if there is a hazardous condition or if there are hazardous materials on site, the contractor is required to immediately stop work, notify the owner, and then they can't return until the owner gets some kind of certificate showing that the danger or that the hazardous material has all been removed. So that's article number 10. It talks a little bit more about different safety things, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. The next portion is insurance, and insurance is obviously really important in construction. So this clause is really important, but there's normally an insurance attachment to every contract or every project that I've been involved in. There's normally a whole separate exhibit that has the insurance, has the policies, and goes way more in detail for insurance than just this little clause. However, what's important to know about the 201 clause 11 or article 11, and what it says in the insurance section, it relates to notifying before cancellation and adding the owner as an additional insured. So that's kind of the important things to know in there. You got to have the owner listed as an additional insured. Obviously, you have to secure insurance. The owner has to normally get some kind of property insurance. There's normally some language in there that gives the contractor a remedy if there is no property insurance. And then there's the language in there saying that you can't cancel this insurance, contractor. You can't cancel your insurance without giving 30 days notice, and you have to give that notice to the owner as well. Another important clause in there is that you have to pretty much give the authority to settle insurance claims to the owner, but then the owner will notify the contractor of any settlement or any offer, and then the contractor has an opportunity to object to that settlement or raise some concerns. But at the end of the day, if the contractor is not happy with the settlement, he can only file a claim. He or she can file a claim under Article 15 of the contract, which is the dispute resolution clause, and we'll get to that later. So essentially, the owner has the right to, negotiate the settlement on behalf of the contractor. So the last clause is clause 12, and it's all about correcting defective work and uncovering work. With regard to uncovering the work, if the architect has let the contractor know ahead of time, hey, I want to inspect this, I need to make sure that I inspect this, and the contractor goes in and covers it up, the architect can come in, owner come in and say, hey, I need you to uncover this work, you got to do it at your own expense. However, if the architect hasn't made it clear that they want to inspect the work, then the work can be uncovered. However, if the work was done correctly, pursuant to the plans, then it's at the owner's expense. If you uncover the work and then it was done incorrectly, then it's at the contractor's expense. So that's kind of how that goes on the whole uncovering work. With regard to correcting work, they kind of break it up depending on whether it's before substantial completion or after substantial completion. Now, before substantial completion, you pretty much go in and you have to correct all defective work. It's not a big deal. It's pretty straightforward. You know, you drop the ball, you got to go in and fix it. However, after substantial completion, there's a requirement that the contractor go in and correct defective work. Typically, it has language in it that has that requirement last for up to a year. However, there's normally some language, and I normally try to get it excluded, try to get something more definitive, because there's language in there that continues to extend the year if there's work that is actually corrected. So let's say that, you know, 6 months after a project is completed, you come in and have to do some warranty work, or you come in and you know, you have to do some work on a portion that you didn't do correctly. Well, then it is extended another year. And then, you know, if you have to come out again, it's extended another year. And so you could end up in this perpetual state of correcting, you know, little nuances. And so I normally try to draft some kind of conditions around that so that you're not just, you know, correcting work in perpetuity. So anyway, that's clauses 10 through 12. We're almost done. Next is going to be 13 through 15, 15 being the dispute resolution clause. I believe that 13 is kind of like the miscellaneous clause, so it's going to have a whole bunch of random stuff in there. And I believe clause 14 is termination, which is always fun and interesting. Anyway, as usual, I hope this is helpful. You all share it, and happy building.
Intervals.